The bone-chilling wail of emergency sirens shattered the pre-dawn silence of Toronto's young Eglinton district. December 15, 2018, 2:47 a.m., in a time when most of the city should have been lost in winter dreams, not awakening to nightmares. The piercing sound cut through the snow-laden air like a blade through silk, bouncing off glass towers that housed thousands of international students chasing the elusive Canadian dream. Red and blue lights painted the pristine snow outside the modest apartment complex in violent streaks of color, creating an abstract canvas of tragedy against the building's weathered brick facade. This should have been exam week, not murder week. Inside the 847 Yonge Street complex, where 60% of residents spoke Hindi as their first language and dreams were measured in visa extensions and grade point averages, something had gone terribly wrong. The building that had witnessed countless success stories, graduations, job offers, permanent residency approvals, now bore witness to its darkest hour. Officer Sarah Martinez, first on scene, stood at the entrance of Unit B12, her breath visible in the frigid air as she processed what lay beyond the partially open door. 3 lives had intersected 8 months ago in ways none of them could have predicted, setting in motion a chain of events that would expose the dark underbelly of Toronto's international student community and prove that desperation, when cornered, could transform even the gentlest soul into something unrecognizable. Rajan Mehta embodied every immigrant parent's sacrifice wrapped in a 28-year-old frame that carried too much weight for its years. Standing barely 5 feet 7 inches, his lean build told the story of survival years of stretching every dollar, choosing textbooks over meals, ambition over comfort. His angular face, marked by premature lines around dark eyes that seemed to calculate every conversation, revealed the toll of carrying an entire family's hopes on shoulders that sometimes shook under the pressure. He had arrived in January 2015 from Mumbai's middle-class Andheri district, carrying engineering textbooks and dreams that seemed achievable when viewed through the lens of immigration brochures. His father, Mohan Mehta, had owned a small construction business that built modest homes for Mumbai's growing middle class, but as larger corporations squeezed out family operations and his mother Priya's diabetes medication costs skyrocketed, the business had crumbled like poorly mixed concrete. Mechanical engineering at Ryerson University had seemed like a golden pathway to permanent residency, but the reality proved far more complex. Rajan's grades slipped steadily as financial stress mounted. Working night shifts at FreshCo from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., then attending morning lectures, left him perpetually exhausted. He lived in a shared basement apartment with paper-thin walls, sleeping on a mattress on the floor while his roommates snoring and the building's ancient heating system provided a symphony of disruption. Permanent residency had become his religion, with immigration law as his holy book. He studied visa requirements with the same intensity he'd once reserved for thermodynamics, memorizing point systems and qualification criteria like sacred verses. Immigration deadlines haunted his dreams like countdown timers to failure, each passing day bringing him closer to potential deportation and family shame. Toronto's vastness made Mumbai's cramped neighborhoods feel intimate by comparison. Here, he was anonymous among millions, invisible to the wealthy customers who shopped at FreshCo and lived lives he could only observe through security cameras and checkout interactions. He watched them effortlessly spend on groceries what he earned in a week, their casual conversations about weekend getaways creating a constant reminder of the chasm between their worlds. The plan's genesis came during one particularly brutal shift when a wealthy couple casually spent $400 on organic produce, making Rajan realize that marriage to someone like them would mean security, status, and most importantly, an unquestionable path to permanent residency. Vikram Singh represented everything pure about the immigrant dream before cynicism corrupted it. At 24, his broader shoulders and calloused hands told the story of Punjab's farming heritage, even as his gentle eyes revealed a soul unsuited for the manipulation that would soon consume him. Standing nearly 6 feet tall with the kind of genuine smile that made strangers trust him immediately, Vikram carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone raised on land his family had worked for generations. He had arrived in September 2017 from Ludhiana, after his family sold 5 acres of ancestral farmland earth that had fed the Singh family for over a century. Computer science at the University of Toronto came naturally to Vikram. Where other students struggled with algorithms, he found poetry in code, seeing patterns that reminded him of the methodical precision required in farming. His professors noted his intuitive grasp of complex concepts, but academic success couldn't eliminate financial pressure. He was loyal to a fault, seeing good in people even when it didn't exist. Part-time shifts at Shoppers Drug Mart provided just enough income to cover shared rent while sending money home monthly. Video calls with aging parents who showed his photo to neighbors with pride had become both blessing and burden, as Vikram never mentioned the nights he went to bed hungry to save money. Rajan had presented himself as an older brother figure who understood the system, making Vikram psychologically vulnerable to requests that his moral compass would normally reject. Olivia Chen-Morrison represented everything Rajan believed he needed to secure his future in Canada. At 26, this second-generation Chinese-Canadian had achieved professional success that seemed impossible to struggling international students. As a marketing executive at Rogers Communications, she commanded an $85,000 salary that afforded her a downtown condo with underground parking for her BMW, luxuries representing financial security beyond Rajan's wildest dreams. But beneath her professional accomplishments lay emotional vulnerability that made her an ideal target for manipulation. Her recent breakup with a longtime boyfriend who had cheated left her questioning her judgment while craving genuine connection. Her generous spirit hiding behind corporate armor made her particularly susceptible to those who seemed to need her help. She appreciated diversity and was actively supportive of international students, often noticing their struggles at the Starbucks near campus where she regularly appeared. She had an unconscious pattern of being attracted to ambitious men with challenging circumstances, drawn to those who seemed to need her support while pursuing meaningful goals. Rajan had chosen her specifically because her combination of wealth, loneliness, and generous nature made her the perfect target for someone willing to weaponize romance for immigration purposes. The recruitment began on a bitter November evening when snow painted the windows of their basement apartment like prison bars. Rajan had been watching Vikram for weeks, noting the mounting stress lines around his roommate's eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly when checking his bank balance, the increasing frequency of worried calls to his parents in Punjab. The visa expiration notice sitting on Vikram's desk provided the perfect opening. "We need to talk," Rajan said, settling across from Vikram at their small kitchen table. The apartment's ancient radiator clanked rhythmically, providing a soundtrack to what would become the most consequential conversation of both their lives. "Your study permit expires in 4 months. Vikram looked up from his computer science textbook, exhaustion evident in every line of his face. "I'm applying for extension. My grades are good enough." "Extensions aren't guaranteed," Rajan replied, sliding a printed article across the table. "Immigration rejections are up 30% this year. Students with better grades than yours are getting denied." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But there's another way, a guaranteed way." The proposal came wrapped in careful justification. This wasn't fraud, Rajan explained, it was strategy. Rich people married for business arrangements all the time, old money families, corporate mergers disguised as romance, political alliances sealed with wedding rings. They would simply be following a time-honored tradition, but in reverse. Instead of wealth-seeking power, they would be survival-seeking security. "My father would disown me if he knew I was lying to a woman," Vikram protested, his voice carrying the weight of traditional Punjabi values. "Marriage is sacred. You don't mock it for immigration papers." Rajan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Your father sold 5 acres of ancestral land for your education. Your mother hasn't bought herself new clothes in 2 years so you could study here. Are you going to let their sacrifice mean nothing because you're too proud to be practical?" The manipulation was surgical in its precision. Rajan revealed details about Vikram's mounting debts that even Vikram hadn't fully acknowledged: the accumulating interest on student loans, the credit card balance growing despite minimal spending, the way his part-time income barely covered basic expenses while tuition costs continued rising. He had prepared meticulously, identifying Olivia Chen-Morrison through careful observation at various locations around the university. "She's lonely," Rajan continued, his voice taking on a gentler tone. "We're not hurting anyone. We're giving her companionship, affection, maybe even real friendship. Everyone wins. She gets a relationship, you get immigration security, and when it's time, I step in as the better choice. The decision point came at 2:47 a.m., when Vikram finally spoke after 3 hours of internal debate. If we do this, and I'm not saying yes, but if we did, how would it work? Rajan's preparation became immediately apparent as he outlined Olivia's patterns, her Tuesday morning Starbucks routine, her lonely lunches at the campus food court. They spent the following week crafting Vikram's approach, rehearsing conversation starters and creating backup plans. 60-40 split, Rajan concluded, extending his hand across the table. Vikram shook it, sealing an agreement that would destroy them both. The engineered encounter unfolded exactly as Rajan had scripted it. Tuesday morning, December 4th, 2018, 8:13 a.m. at the Starbucks on Bloor Street. Vikram's hands trembled as he ordered his coffee, nearly backing out twice before Olivia Chen-Morrison walked through the glass doors wearing her signature black wool coat and carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," he stammered after his carefully rehearsed accident sent hot coffee splashing across the counter, grabbing napkins with genuine panic that made his performance completely authentic. "I'm such an idiot. Let me buy you a coffee to apologize for almost ruining your morning." Olivia's laugh was warmer than he had expected, cutting through his nervous energy like sunlight through clouds. "You didn't even hit me, but I appreciate the offer. You look like you need the caffeine more than I do though." When he mentioned studying computer science at University of Toronto, her genuine interest surprised him. "That's fascinating. I work in tech marketing, so I'm always curious about the actual development side." Their first official date happened 3 days later at a modest restaurant near campus that Vikram could actually afford. Olivia insisted on splitting the bill, a gesture that both relieved his financial anxiety and made his deception feel more criminal. The cultural exchange became genuine bonding as weeks progressed. Vikram found himself sharing real memories, helping his father repair farming equipment, his mother's singing while cooking chapatis, the way monsoon rains sounded on their tin roof. Olivia reciprocated with stories about navigating between her parents' traditional Chinese expectations and Toronto's multicultural reality. Coffee dates progressed to lunches, then dinners, then weekend activities that Olivia often paid for without making Vikram feel embarrassed about his financial limitations. She took him to the CN Tower, ice skating at Nathan Phillips Square, cultural events that expanded his understanding of Canadian life beyond the narrow corridor between his apartment, university, and workplace. But every shared laugh felt like betrayal, every genuine moment of connection poisoned by the knowledge that his presence in her life was purchased. Rajan's coaching sessions became increasingly uncomfortable as genuine feelings developed. "Remember, you're building trust for me to inherit," he would remind Vikram after each date, reviewing photos Vikram hadn't realized he was supposed to be taking for evidence. "Don't get too attached. This is temporary." Their first kiss happened during a December snowfall outside the Royal Ontario Museum, spontaneous and unscripted, leaving Vikram unable to sleep that night as he processed emotions that felt entirely too real for someone supposedly playing a role. Olivia's gift-giving revealed her thoughtful nature, a warm winter coat when she noticed his inadequate jacket, textbooks for his advanced courses, small items that showed she paid attention to his needs and interests. Meeting Olivia's friends at a New Year's Eve party proved both validating and terrifying. Her social circle of successful young professionals welcomed him warmly, impressed by his intelligence and ambition, while noting how happy Olivia seemed. When Olivia introduced him to her parents via video call, speaking excitedly about her brilliant boyfriend studying computer science, Vikram's guilt nearly overwhelmed him. 3 months into their relationship, Olivia used the word love for the first time while they walked along the frozen harborfront. The word hit Vikram like physical blow, knowing that her feelings were genuine while his presence was purchased. That night, Rajan's impatience became apparent. "When are you going to create the breakup scenario? We need to move to phase 2. Vikram's confession attempts multiplied as his internal conflict intensified. 3 separate times he nearly told Olivia the truth. Once during a quiet dinner at her condo, once while walking through High Park, once as they lay together watching movies. Each time, Fear of her reaction and loyalty to Rajan stopped him from speaking. By March 2018, their relationship had reached a serious turning point. Olivia mentioned marriage casually during conversations about their future, expressing interest in visiting Punjab to meet his family in person. The immigration benefits that Rajan had promised were starting to materialize through their documented relationship, creating pathways to permanent residency that had seemed impossible just months earlier. Community gossip within Toronto's Indian student population focused on Vikram's remarkable fortune in finding a wealthy Canadian girlfriend. Other struggling students looked at him with mixture of admiration and envy, seeing him as someone who had successfully navigated the system. The point of no return arrived when Olivia began planning their future together with specificity that terrified Vikram. Discussing apartment hunting, meeting each other's families, even tentative conversations about engagement timelines. He realized that every day he delayed confession made the eventual revelation more devastating, but every day he considered confession made abandoning Rajan's plan feel like betrayal of the friendship that had sustained him through his most difficult period in Canada. The realization crashed into Vikram's consciousness like a freight train derailing at full speed. April 12, 2018, 3:22 a.m. He lay awake in his narrow bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling while Olivia's voice echoed in his memory from their dinner hours earlier. She had been planning their summer together, mentioning visits to Punjab, meeting his extended family, talking about applying for jobs in Toronto after graduation so they could build a life together. The casual way she spoke about their future, the genuine excitement in her voice when she described learning Punjabi to communicate better with his parents, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about experiencing harvest season on a working farm, it all struck him with the crushing weight of authentic love. How do you tell someone their love was purchased? The question tormented him through sleepless nights that stretched into dawn, each possibility more devastating than the last. He imagined her face when she learned the truth, the moment trust would shatter like glass hitting concrete, the way her genuine affection would transform into justified hatred. The woman who brought him homemade soup when he was sick, who stayed up all night helping him prepare for his algorithms exam, who defended him to her skeptical friends when they whispered about international students using Canadian women for immigration purposes. She deserved honesty, not the elaborate deception that had defined their entire relationship. Vikram began secretly consulting immigration lawyers during his lunch breaks, researching legitimate pathways to permanent residency that didn't require fraudulent relationships. The consultations revealed what he had suspected. His academic performance and work experience created viable options for legal immigration, pathways that would take longer but wouldn't require destroying the one person who had shown him unconditional support. Each lawyer's office visit strengthened his resolve while simultaneously highlighting the magnitude of his betrayal. The guilt manifested in physical symptoms that worried his professors and co-workers. He lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, his appetite disappearing entirely as shame consumed him from the inside. Insomnia became his constant companion, dark circles under his eyes deepening until concerned classmates asked if he was seriously ill. His hands developed a tremor that made coding difficult, forcing him to step away from his computer multiple times during each programming session to steady his nerves. Seeking spiritual guidance, Vikram found himself at the Guru Nanak Gurdwara on Sunday mornings, sitting in the prayer hall while elderly Sikh men and women chanted hymns that reminded him of his childhood in Punjab. The familiar rhythm of Punjabi prayers transported him back to simpler times when his moral compass pointed steadily north, before survival in Canada had forced him to navigate by different stars. During one particularly emotional service, tears streaming down his face as the community sang about truth and righteousness, Vikram made his decision. Choosing Olivia over Rajan after 4 months of deception felt like stepping off a cliff into unknown territory. The decision required abandoning the safety net that Rajan represented, the older brother figure who had guided him through Toronto's complexities, the friendship that had sustained him through his most difficult periods of homesickness and financial stress. But continuing the lie had become impossible, each day adding weight to a burden that threatened to crush everything good in his life. Practice sessions began immediately. Vikram stood before his mirror each morning, rehearsing confession speeches that never felt adequate to the magnitude of his betrayal. He wrote unsent letters to Olivia that filled notebooks with explanations, apologies, and desperate pleas for forgiveness that sounded hollow even to himself. The letters revealed the depth of his transformation, from reluctant accomplice to genuine lover to someone willing to sacrifice everything for honesty. Planning to tell both Olivia and his parents the truth required courage he wasn't sure he possessed. His parents would need to understand that their son had compromised his moral foundation in pursuit of the Canadian dream they had sacrificed everything to fund. The conversation would destroy their pride in his supposed success while potentially jeopardizing their own hopes of joining him in Canada. But some lies become too heavy to carry, and Vikram had reached his breaking point. The commitment to face all consequences felt like preparing for his own execution. Deportation seemed inevitable once immigration authorities learned about the fraudulent relationship. Criminal charges remained possible. Community shame would follow him back to Punjab, where neighbors who had celebrated his Canadian education would whisper about the boy who had disgraced his family name for immigration papers. The confession scene unfolded in Olivia's downtown condo on a February evening, when city lights painted the windows like stars brought down to earth. She had prepared dinner, his favorite Punjabi-inspired fusion dish that represented her attempts to bridge their cultural worlds, thinking it was just another romantic date night. The apartment smelled of cumin and coriander. Candles flickered on the dining table, and soft jazz played from her expensive sound system. "There's something I need to tell you about how we met," Vikram began, his voice barely above a whisper as they sat on her leather couch overlooking the glittering cityscape below. Olivia's confusion was immediate and heartbreaking. "What do you mean? We met at Starbucks when you spilled coffee everywhere." Her laugh carried no suspicion, only affection for what she remembered as their charmingly clumsy beginning. "That wasn't an accident," he continued, pulling out his phone to show her text messages with Rajan that documented their entire plan. "None of this was real. My roommate planned everything. He wanted me to date you, gain your trust, then break up with you so he could be there to comfort you and eventually marry you for immigration purposes." The emotional explosion that followed progressed through stages like grief, shock, rendered her speechless for nearly a minute. Hurt caused tears that she wiped away angrily, and rage transformed her gentle features into something he barely recognized. "So our entire relationship is based on a lie?" she asked, her voice deadly calm in a way that terrified him more than screaming would have. "It started as one, but became something else," Vikram pleaded, reaching for her hand as she pulled away from his touch. "My feelings became real. Everything between us is real now. I love you more than I've ever loved anything, and I'm willing to lose everything to keep you." Olivia demanded they both come clean to authorities immediately, her business executive training taking over as she processed the legal implications of immigration fraud. She asked him to leave that night, needing space to process the destruction of everything she thought she knew about their relationship. Vikram's desperation was palpable as he stood in her doorway, knowing he might never see her again. Returning home to face Rajan felt like walking into a lion's den. "You threw away both our futures for what?" Rajan asked when Vikram confessed what he had done, his disbelief quickly escalating to rage as he realized the implications. "Do you know what happens if this gets out?" The argument that followed revealed the fundamental difference between them. Rajan couldn't understand choosing love over security, emotion over calculation. "I'm going to tell them myself," Vikram declared, his resolve strengthened by Rajan's threats. The moment when Rajan realized Vikram couldn't be deterred marked the point of no return, desperation setting in as his entire life plan crumbled like a house built on shifting sand. "If you destroy my future, I'll destroy you," Rajan whispered, his words carrying a weight that would prove prophetic in ways neither of them could imagine. The final confrontation erupted in their basement apartment on December 15, 2018, as a winter storm battered Toronto with unforgiving fury. Snow accumulated against their single window like nature's attempt to seal them inside their tomb, while the building's ancient heating system wheezed its last breath, leaving the small space frigid enough that their breath formed clouds with each angry word. The kitchen knife lay visible on the scratched counter where Vikram had left it after preparing his meager dinner, both men acutely aware of its presence as they circled each other like predators assessing threat levels. "We can fix this," Rajan pleaded, his voice carrying the desperation of someone watching his entire future crumble. Tell her it was a test of her love. Rich people do crazy things to test their partners. She'll understand, maybe even respect the strategy. I'm meeting with an immigration lawyer tomorrow, Vikram declared, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I'm confessing everything to authorities. This ends now. Their physical positioning revealed the psychological distance that had grown between them. Rajan pressed his back against the door as if blocking Vikram's escape, while Vikram maintained distance near the kitchen counter. The escalating voices carried through paper-thin walls to neighbors who had grown accustomed to late-night arguments. But tonight's confrontation possessed a different quality. Rage mixed with desperation in proportions that created something more dangerous than ordinary anger. Rajan invoked cultural shame with surgical precision, weaponizing everything he knew about Vikram's traditional values. Think about family honor, community reputation. Your parents will be destroyed when neighbors learn their son committed immigration fraud. My father will lose the house because of you. 30 years of construction work gone because you chose feelings over survival. Your father doesn't know he raised a manipulator, Vikram countered, his gentle nature finally expressing the anger that months of deception had built inside him. My parents raised me to choose truth over convenience, even when truth costs everything. The push came without warning. Rajan's frustration exploded into physical action as he grabbed Vikram's shirt, desperation transforming him into something unrecognizable. Mrs. Patel upstairs paused her television program, noting unusual noise levels that made her consider calling building management. The trigger moment arrived when Vikram reached for his phone to call Olivia, needing to hear her voice before making decisions that would change everything. Rajan's snap was immediate and violent, lunging to prevent the call that would confirm his worst fears about Vikram's commitment to confession. Two young men of similar size, fueled by months of suppressed anger and desperation, crashed together in the small space. Their physical struggle overturned furniture, scattered belongings, and created chaos that neighbors could hear through multiple floors. Vikram's computer crashed to the floor, screen shattering like his dreams of honest redemption. Kitchen chairs overturned, textbooks flew across the room, and the small table where they had planned their deception splintered under the weight of bodies fighting for futures that seemed mutually exclusive. The knife entered the struggle when Rajan, realizing that Vikram's physical strength might overpower his desperation, grabbed the blade from the counter. Critical moments unfolded with the inevitability of tragedy. Two friends who had become enemies, desperation overriding reason, survival instincts replacing human compassion. Neighbor responses escalated from concerned murmurs to panicked pounding on walls, with Mrs. Patel finally threatening to call police if the disturbance didn't stop immediately. The fatal blow came without intention, desperation guiding Rajan's hand as the knife found its target with surgical precision. Vikram's expression changed from anger to surprise to something approaching forgiveness as he realized what had happened. The young man who had chosen love over security, truth over survival, looked at his former friend with eyes that held no hatred, only sadness for dreams that would die with him. Immediate aftermath brought silence that felt heavier than the previous chaos. Rajan stared at what he had done, his desperation replaced by shock that numbed him to the magnitude of his actions. At 11:23 p.m., as snow continued falling outside their window, the cover-up phase began with panic-driving decisions that would prove as futile as the violence that preceded them. Rajan's cleaning attempt involved bleach and towels in desperate efforts to erase evidence that physics had already embedded in their apartment surfaces. He developed narratives about Vikram's sudden departure, deleted incriminating text messages, and practiced innocent explanations for questioning that would inevitably come. But his panic made him miss crucial evidence while time pressure mounted from neighbors who had heard everything. His performance would need to convince investigators that his roommate had simply vanished, leaving behind a friend who knew nothing about immigration fraud, romantic deception, or the violence that transformed their shared dreams into a nightmare written in blood on basement apartment walls. The investigation began when Olivia contacted police 3 days after Vikram's confession, requesting a welfare check when her calls went unanswered. Officer Sarah Martinez arrived at 8:47 Young Street to find Rajan's carefully constructed story already crumbling under scrutiny. His claim that Vikram had left suddenly for family emergency contradicted the abandoned belongings, including passport and winter coat no student would leave behind in December Toronto. The crime scene revealed evidence that Rajan's panic had missed. Blood spatter analysis indicated struggle patterns inconsistent with his departure narrative, while forensic teams discovered DNA evidence that cleaning supplies couldn't eliminate. Detective Sarah Kim, a 15-year veteran specializing in domestic violence cases, immediately recognized signs of attempted cover-up that transformed missing person inquiry into homicide investigation. Digital footprints provided the prosecution's strongest evidence. Text messages between Rajan and Vikram documented their deception plot with damning specificity, while social media posts revealed timeline inconsistencies in Rajan's story. Financial records showed suspicious purchases of cleaning supplies and bleach in quantities suggesting evidence disposal rather than routine household maintenance. The Indian student community's response split between fear and cooperation. Many worried that association with the case might jeopardize their own immigration status, while others recognized that silence enabled predators who exploited vulnerable students. Olivia's statement about the elaborate deception plot provided crucial context that transformed a parent-roommate dispute into calculated immigration fraud scheme gone deadly. Evidence collection revealed surveillance footage from building cameras showing no departure by Vikram, contradicting Rajan's timeline. Blood analysis confirmed identity through DNA matches, while fingerprint evidence placed both men at the struggle scene. Inconsistencies in Rajan's multiple statements to different officers created prosecutorial roadmap to conviction. Timeline reconstruction revealed Vikram's final 24 hours through phone records, witness statements, and digital communications. His last messages to Olivia expressed determination to confess everything, providing motive for Rajan's desperate violence. Federal immigration authorities joined the investigation after learning about systematic fraud implications, expanding charges beyond murder to include conspiracy and document falsification. Rajan's arrest occurred at Ryerson University, where he continued attending classes while living with his roommate's blood on his hands. Charges included first-degree murder and immigration fraud, carrying life imprisonment plus deportation after sentence completion. His court-appointed lawyer faced overwhelming evidence while prosecution presented methodical case built on digital evidence, forensic analysis, and witness testimony. The defense strategy of claiming self-defense collapsed when evidence revealed premeditation elements. Temporary insanity pleas failed against documentation of calculated planning and cover-up attempts. Olivia's emotional court appearance provided devastating testimony about the deception plot's human cost, while other students' reluctance to testify revealed community-wide fear of immigration consequences. Cultural context became crucial as judges learned about pressures facing international students. Immigration deadlines, family expectations, and financial stress created an environment where desperation flourished, though courts emphasized that circumstances never justify violence. Rajan's eventual confession came after months of legal proceedings, finally admitting to both planning the deception and executing the murder. Life imprisonment without parole for 25 years, followed by deportation, ended his Canadian dreams permanently. Vikram's family in Punjab learned truth through media coverage, their grief compounded by betrayal and shame. The aftermath revealed broader implications beyond individual tragedy. Olivia's healing journey included therapy to process manipulation trauma and advocacy for international student support systems. Universities expanded counseling programs specifically addressing immigration stress and exploitation vulnerability. Rajan's prison experience involved solitary confinement for protection from other inmates who targeted those who killed friends. Both families faced destruction. Vikram's parents lost their son and life savings, while Rajan's family endured community shame and financial ruin. The final reflection emphasized how desperation can corrupt even sacred bonds like friendship, transforming survival instincts into destructive forces. But hope emerged from community responses that prioritized support over shame, creating systems to prevent future tragedies while honoring memories of those lost to circumstances that should never have existed.